Hi, my name is Julianne, also known as Roadrunner, and in 2022 I thru hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, and this year, 2024, I am going to thru hike the Pacific Crest Trail. So today I want to talk about my big three. So if you're not familiar with the term of the big three, it essentially means your pack, your shelter, and your sleep system. And so those three items usually make up the most of your weight. And this is one of the reasons why people are very interested in what somebody's big three are. To be honest, my big three for the Pacific Crest Trail are pretty much the same as the big three on the Appalachian Trail, with the exception to my pack. But I never really did a big three video, and so I thought maybe I should do one. So here it is. So for the Appalachian, I don't know why I keep doing this. So for the Appalachian Trail, so for the Appalachian Trail, I did have a hyperlight backpack. In fact, it was the Wind Rider. And for the Pacific Crest Trail, I choose to go with another hyperlight pack. And this time it'll be the Unbound. Have a looky. It's like this. Ooh, ooh. So I find those packs work for me. I do have a ULA Circuit, which is a great pack, but the reason why I chose the Hyperlight Unbound is basically the material, Dyneema. I'm a big fan of Dyneema, and I hope that this pack actually will keep things a lot drier than my Hyperlight Wind Rider. If you've seen one of my videos, I do talk about how the Wind Rider doesn't have any seam sealing on the bottom, right around here. And so knowing that now, I can alleviate those kind of issues that would maybe come up. So the difference about the Unbound versus the Wind Rider are the pockets, as well as it has a bottom pocket, and it doesn't have an ice axe loop, which is a little bit unfortunate, though I thought it would have an ice axe loop, but unfortunately it does not. I do have a video that talks about the Unbound more in detail, so I'm not going to go super into it, but if you've noticed, I am going to hike with my Appalachian Trail tag. I had it removed from my Wind Rider and I kept it like in a safe place, and I just didn't want to hike with it even on my section hikes, because you know, it's like near and dear to me. But for my thru hike of the PCT, I just wanted to have it. It's a very important piece. It's very sentimental, and so I'm going to carry it with me. And also, if you are familiar with the Unbound, you know that it doesn't come with these orange cords, but I saw in another video, in fact it was Alicia in the Mountains, so follow her on YouTube. She's going to do the AT this year. She added some of this cord to her pack, and I was like, brilliant! It was just so smart, and I kind of like adding that color. And so I am going to go on a section hike in March, and I'm going to see if I really even need that, but I like the way it looks. The reason why I think I might need this is to carry my camp shoes. I'm in a little bit of a predicament of which camp shoes to use. I have some Tevas, I have some Crocs. Neither of those are really perfect, so I just want to see if this will help me kind of make a decision on which camp shoe I'm gonna take with me. So moving on to my sleep system, I am going to go with a quilt, which is the Enlightened Equipment Revelation. It's the same quilt that I used for the Appalachian Trail. It was one of my favorite pieces of gear. It kept me really warm at night, and I love that quilt. It is a 10-degree 850 fill, and yeah, and I love the color scheme, which is blue with a little orange, and so it's tried and proven, or whatever the saying is, and I love that quilt. I am going to pair the quilt with a sleeping bag liner, I think it's what it's called, and it will be the Sea to Summit Reactor. I did a thru hike of the Foothills Trail recently, and there was one night that was in the upper 20s, and I was cold without the liner, so I had really considered not bringing the liner just for the weight, because it's like, I don't know exactly how much weight it is, but at least half a pound. And I was like, I'm not gonna bring it. I have my system all worked out, but no, I will be bringing my sleeping bag liner in conjunction with my quilt, just to create that extra warmth and making sure that I have a good time, not a bad time. Now, when you have something like a quilt, you do need a blow-up sleeping pad. It's recommended. It's almost like, I mean, it's not required, but it's really, really recommended because a blow-up pad helps with the heat. If you don't know what a quilt is, it's not a sleeping bag. It's not the entire body. A quilt pretty much is like a blanket, but you can cinch it down to make it, you know, enclose the pad quite nicely, but you do need a sleeping pad that you can blow up that helps you with the heat. And so what I'm gonna go with is my usual, and that would be the Thermarest Neo Air X Lite. It is still in good shape. I've used this on my entire Appalachian Trail through hike, and I love this sleeping pad. And since it's still good, I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna unpack it for you because I do want to show something that I did at the beginning of the Appalachian Trail to help with something, and I never really talked about it, I don't think. So it's not the cleanest pad, but what I did is, if you see this right here, on the bottom of my pad, I added some carpet or rug tape that helps prevent from sliding. So if you're on a slant while you're trying to camp, usually, you know, you're sliding down. So this carpet or rug tape really helps with that. And then here are the straps that go with the quilt. And then in addition to that, I'm also going to bring a Gossamer Gear foam pad. Now this is my old pad. If you can see, it's got some holes. And it's not like in the best shape. So for Christmas, I got a new one. So I'm gonna be bringing this with me. I might even cut a little piece of this to create like a little sit pad, because I found when I was on the foothills, I didn't bring a sit pad and I was really sad. I would have liked to have one. It's hard for me to use the foam pad for anything other than putting it under my sleeping pad. So that's why I'm gonna bring something extra so that I don't feel guilty if I sit on like a rock or some thorns or something like that. Now for the Pacific Crest Trail, I am going to bring a piece of luxury gear with me, and it has to do with my sleep system, and I'm really excited about it. And that is the FlexTail air pump. And as you can see, it says 1.2 ounces, and it really is just that light. And this helps me blow up my sleeping pad under 1 minute. I think it was like 58 seconds when I tried it out recently. And yeah, it's just nice to have something that will alleviate that annoyance of having to blow it up. If you have never done a through hike, you might wonder, oh wow, it's so hard to blow up a sleeping pad. No, it's not hard. I did it for the entire Appalachian Trail, but it is a little bit of a nuisance, and I was just a tiny bit jealous of people who had a sleeping pad pump. And because this is only 1.2 ounces, it's almost impossible to not be able to justify taking this. It's like, I have to take it. And I do have to say that this is a very new product, so I don't know if you would call that they're on back order, but this took about 2.5 months to get. So if you are planning to do a through hike, it might be too late for you to get this pump now, but if you don't have a time restraint and you like it, go get it because it's fun. Oh, and then if you want to hear what it sounds like, it's not very loud, but it's so cool, right? And then last, of course, but not least, is my shelter. It was either the Nemo Hornet for 2 people or the Z-Pax Duplex for 2 people. And I had to go with the Duplex. And I'm going to talk about why in the next part that I filmed a little bit earlier, but ultimately it came down to weight and material. And so if you're interested to know about that, here comes another 12 minutes of talking about that. If not, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. And I'm gonna do a full-on gear review or gear loadout video of my entire gear for the Pacific Crest Trail coming up soon. Thank you so much. All right, the first thing that I'm doing here is I'm setting the trekking poles at the right height. Now, I put it at 122 centimeters, and it's really important to notice that there's 2 spots on the trekking pole where you do that, so you have to do it on both ends. I use the regular MSR groundhog stakes for pitching my tent, and what I do is I start out with each corner of the tent before I set up the trekking pole parts with the vestibules. Now I'm taking the trekking poles, I stake out each side. I don't close the vestibule side doors until I've put the trekking poles in on each side, then I close the vestibules. I also don't tighten the guidelines until I've pitched the whole tent, and then I tighten each guideline, and that really helps me to have a perfect tent setup. So that's pretty much how you set up the ZPAX duplex. One of the important things is that these guidelines need to be almost literally, I didn't really do it perfectly, but like a 90-degree angle for a perfect pitch. Like even if you just offset like this, oh my gosh, my hair's in the way. Let's do it differently. So even if you just offset it like this, it really makes a big difference in the pitch. Now for extra headroom, you do have an extra spot where you can take a stake and put it in the ground, and then what it does, it pulls up this area right here to create extra headroom for, you know, the hikers or the campers. So my duplex survived an entire through hike of the Appalachian Trail, as well as some section hikes, and I'm hoping it's going to last the entire Pacific Crest Trail through hike. But I do want to show you some of the wear and tear that I've experienced so far on this trail, on this tent. So getting into the tent is rather simple. You just unzip. Obviously the trekking pole is in the way, and a lot of people don't like that. So that's something to consider if you're not interested in having a trekking pole in the way. I have noticed there to be micro holes right here around where the trekking pole goes in, and that's because I used to keep this super taut, and I find that if I tighten it really strongly and then just loosen it a little bit, that should alleviate from the stretching to happen to the material, and they're not to become, and it not to create any micro holes. All right, so let's get in there. Okay, alrighty, so just as I got to Hot Springs on my Appalachian Trail through hike, I noticed a hole right here, as well as a hole right here. And so those were the only two holes or two damage pieces that I experienced on my AT through hike. Hot Springs is pretty soon into the hike, so I was a little bit discouraged, but I just used some of the Dyneema repair material that I got from ZPAX and repaired this. And then what I did with the bathtub floor, I used the Dyneema material on this side, and then I used some tenacious tape on the other side just to create that extra protection. So I don't know if you see this right here. That's where the little micro holes were created from the stretching. And so again, I just used some Dyneema tape to repair that. Overall, my tent looks like it's still in a really great condition. It is my shelter, so I'm a little bit intense about keeping it safe from the elements, you know, drying it out as soon as possible, and just, you know, protecting it. So why did I choose the Dyneema tent over, you know, another tent like the Nemo Hornet that I really love? I love the Nemo Hornet because it's so cozy, and I love the idea of a double wall tent. But I chose the duplex because, first of all, it lasted my entire through hike. It's a very, very reliable tent. It's strong. It protects me from the elements. Rain never seeped through, so that was great. And also, obviously, Dyneema is ultra light, so therefore it's about 19 ounces that I'm carrying instead of anything over like 2 pounds. The fact that it uses trekking poles to set up is another benefit, because if I were to use a double wall tent, I would have to carry the sticks that go for setting up, and I already use the trekking poles, so it's not like I'm carrying anything more than I need already. And then also another reason why I chose the duplex is because Dyneema material dries incredibly fast. So when you use a tent that is sil nylon and it gets wet, it gets soaked and it gets heavy, probably double if not triple the weight that it is if it's dry. And the duplex is just not like that. It does get wet, it does get soaked, but once you take it out and you dry it, it's so fast. I can't even describe to you how fast this tent dries. And also it doesn't get as heavy as a sil nylon tent. So while I love how cozy a double wall tent is, like the Nemo Hornet, I love that tent. The fact that it gets so heavy, it doesn't dry as quickly, and it in general is a lot heavier than a Dyneema tent like the duplex, it was almost a no-brainer to choose the duplex. I feel sad because I don't think the duplex is cozy. But then again, you know, you're supposed to hike, sleep in the tent, and that's it. But if you don't know a duplex, let me just show you a little bit more about what's inside of here. So the duplex does come with these two side pockets. So when I do camp, I put all my extra bags, like the tent stake bag, you know, the bag for the Dyneema tent, I put that in there. Also, I right away take out my headlamp and place it in there so that I know where it is. And yeah, headlamp, stuff sacks, that's usually what I put in these. And I have one on each side. And I would say I just use one at a time depending on which side I put my sleeping pad. In addition, you do have some little loops right here where you could, you know, hang a little line, which I did at one point to see if I can dry my clothes. But if you watched one of my other videos, drying clothes inside of your tent like that doesn't really work. And then, of course, as you already saw, there is another spot to put the tent stakes up and where this pulls up. And in addition, you can pull this to raise the bathtub floor to prevent it from having water splash from the outside into the tent. So that does happen with the tent at times, that if the outside wall is not hanging over the bathtub, then, you know, something will come in. And that's really it when it comes to any accessories of the Dyneema tent. It's not really like fancy because it's supposed to be ultralight, right? But yeah, it's super simple to set up. I can set it up in about a minute if I am extremely like rushing and there's like a rainstorm. I can set up pretty quickly. I am very used to it. It's super easy to do, and it's really easy to pack up as well. You do have these vestibules where you have extra room to put your pack on the outside of your tent if you are so inclined. I choose to have the pack on the bottom, and I usually use the top of my pack to put my feet on, just because that way I have extra heat or cold protection. So because my pad is a little bit shorter than me, just a tiny, I mean, I can fit on it, but my feet sometimes do hang over. So I use the top of my pack and I place the pad on top, and that gives me an extra little layer for you know, creating warmth. But you do have this vestibule. When it is raining, I do sometimes cook my food outside of this vestibule, not inside. I mean, I have cooked inside, but usually you want to do it on the outside. And of course, as you can see, there are some extra loops where you can tighten it. I don't have the zip version of the duplex, but this has worked for me really well to create extra closure if it is getting really, really, really windy. trying to think what else you would want to know about this tent. Ultimately, this tent has lasted such a long time. I'm excited to take it out. Would I love to have a brand new duplex? Probably, but I'm excited to make it last for 2 through hikes. I know that Z-Pack says that this tent is almost guaranteed to last 1 entire through hike, so I would like to see if it lasts 2 entire through hikes, which I think so. If you take care of it and you don't just throw it all over the place, I think it will be in good shape. So let me pack it up. My takedown process starts by cleaning out the inside of the tent, by shaking out the dirt, and then I reverse the process by taking down the vestibule sides first and then removing each corner tent stake. And I do lay the tent material that's not the bathtub inward so that the bathtub does protect it. I like to keep my things clean, so I do clean the tent stakes by using just another tent stake instead of a piece of stick. And then I fold and roll my tent. Some people think you should just stuff it, but I find rolling it up is the best way to fit it into the bag. The bag itself has started to frill, but not the tent, but the bag has. I probably would be helpful to have a new bag, but I'm gonna use it until it dies.